So there's a huge problem in the gaming industry, and if you look at it, games like Elden Ring, Remnant 2, brilliant, brilliant games. I mean, updates for Remnant 2 have kind of broken it. There's been some issues in Elden Ring, but games like that at least start off really, really well, they will just lose players over time. So we're talking thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of players will disappear due to a lack of content. And it's not a lack of content as in laziness or anything like that. It's a lack of content because these games aren't designed to continuously add new things into their games. And then when you look at it on the other side of it, you get these free-to-play, hyped up online games. They retain the players so much better. A game, for an example, Apex Legends, it's around 4.5 years old at the time I'm recording this video, but it's reached its peak Steam player count, concurrent players, only 8 months ago. So games like Elden Ring going from nearly 1 million players down to like 20 or 30,000. A game like Remnant 2 going from, say for an example, 130,000 concurrent players at launch, goes down to about 10,000 or something like that. You get these games, especially live service ones like Apex Legends, that the release and 4 years later they've got so much content in and there's so many people talking about them because they're free to play that they just build up and up and up with their players. And I think Apex Legends is sitting at nearly 500,000 concurrent players as its peak. And that was reached only 8 months ago on a nearly 4.5-year-old game. But it's not just free-to-play games. Something that's really hyped up can do incredibly well, even if it's not that good of a game. So something like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, I'm not saying it was awful, but it wasn't the best. The SBMM was busted. You had a load of bugs and stuff. I did so many videos talking about problems within the game. And that game broke records for Activision and the Call of Duty franchise. It reached $1 billion in 10 days and around $800 million in 3 days after the launch, which is similar to GTA 5. And GTA 5 is a gigantic game from about 10 years ago. And that's just a part of the problem. Another part is you get games that release and they're not that great, they don't do well in sales, and then you get a bunch of staff laid off. So people that have worked their asses off to release a game for the publishers, and for the players obviously, they just get sacked, essentially. Like there's a couple of things the company does every now and then to try and help the people being sacked, to try and help them into other jobs. I say sacked, it's called laid off, but essentially you're kicked out of the company. If there's a job opening, you've probably got a bigger chance of getting back into it. But if not, you're screwed, you've got to go find another job. And it's becoming more and more of a problem with things like that, because you get games that come out, Immortals of Aveum, and I think most of the studio is gone. I think they've laid off a lot of their staff members, and they'll probably close the development company or something like that. And with EA, I mean, they consume a lot of smaller companies and just take on a load of their staff and then shut the smaller companies down. If I remember correctly, they did it to a company called Bullfrog back in the 90s or early 2000s or something. I can't remember the exact timeline. But they were a really, really good development company, and EA ruined their company, consumed some of the staff, and then closed them down. And they've done it with multiple companies through the years. And that, in my opinion, is a huge problem in the gaming industry. You get these companies, these developers that, like, they go through all this experience, they learn how to code games and everything, and develop and create games. They work their asses off every single day for years. They go through all this crunch and everything. And then they're at risk of being laid off if the game's not as successful as the publishers and investors want. And it's not just with games that fail. Staff at the CD Projekt Red studio, so the ones that work on things like The Witcher and Cyberpunk 2077, they are now bonding together. The developers are bonding together to basically unionize and come together as a team to say, like, this ain't fair, because they are laying off 9% or around 9% of their staff. That's about 100 people that are going to lose their job. And when it comes to Cyberpunk, they've just released the Phantom Liberty DLC and Update 2.0, and it's done really, really well for the game. But staff are still losing their job. I think a lot of companies, like the big publishers and stuff, they get so greedy when it comes to hiring people. They're far too overstaffed, but they don't do anything about it until after games have been released, or when they see their profit margins coming down. They just, like, as soon as they take a hit, the developers, the ones that actually do the hardest part of the job, they're the ones that have to suffer. You're not going to see the higher-ups being fired because the sales figures aren't correct for a game that they've just released. You're never going to see that happen. It's always the developers that get the short end of the stick. They get mugged off essentially by the company. And I think these publishers, these investors need to at some point in the future realize that without the developers, the people working their asses off, and without the players, the ones that are buying their products, they wouldn't have a company. So they need to make sure that they are not overstaffed. They need to make sure that their game is polished so that it has a good reception. And they need to just start creating quality, especially when you've got the Capcom president saying, I think games are too cheap. If you're going to start fucking charging more for games, make sure that your games are of good quality. And make sure your staff aren't going to be laid off a couple of months after your game releases. It's a big, big problem within the gaming industry. Not only are there brilliant games that are losing their player base because of the way the games are designed, like that just happens naturally with a story game like Elden Ring, and a game that only has so much replayability like Remnant 2. And then we get the games like Apex Legends, which is just a battle royale. It's just you go in, you do the same thing over and over again, but because it's a live service, online experience, it retains its player base for years and years and years. I don't know what could be done to make it any better for the single player games like Elden Ring. I know there's co-op and PvP and stuff in there, but essentially it's a single player game. And I don't know what the industry could do besides like making sure that the games are better quality and making sure they're not overstaffed to stop developers being laid off all the time. But it's complete bullshit, and it is a massive problem within the gaming industry. And on that note, we are going to leave the video there. If you enjoyed it, leaving a like is appreciated. If you wish to support me further as a creator, there are links in the description. Let me know your thoughts about the video in the comments. And if you want to watch more, you can click the video on screen. All support on the channel is greatly appreciated, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.